All right, hello everyone. So today we're going to talk about 15 tactics that may not make sense, but they do make money. And as I step you through each of the 15, you might find yourself thinking, well, that sounds kind of weird. Do marketers really do that? Is that a best practice? But I assure you, if you are looking to wring more ROI out of your marketing campaigns, these are the tactics to embrace. Now, to get the most out of today's session, you really only need to remember two things. The first is people do strange things. And the second is, when in doubt, see number one. Now, the question, of course, becomes, well, why do people do such strange things? Why do our customers and prospects do such strange things? And it turns out that scientists have actually spent a good deal of time and energy investigating this question, and they've come up with an answer. And they found out that people do strange things because they don't think. They don't think. What they usually do, what they often do, instead of thinking, is they rely on decision-making shortcuts. So what's a decision-making shortcut? Well, it's an automatic, instinctive, reflexive response. Humans have developed these over the ages as a way to conserve mental energy, because we couldn't possibly think about every specific detail before making a decision, or we'd never get around to making any. So instead, what we've done is we've developed these hardwired behaviors, and we kind of cruise along through life on autopilot, and when we encounter a certain situation, we just default to these hardwired behaviors, giving the matter at hand little, if any, thought. Daniel Kahneman is a world-renowned behavioral economist. He won the Nobel Prize, and he puts it this way. He says, thinking is to humans as swimming is to cats. They can do it, but they'd prefer not to. So what do we, as marketers and advertisers and brand people, what do we do with this information? Well, it actually presents a huge opportunity for us, because if we know that people aren't really thinking and they're just reacting, we can use that to our advantage. And today, what I'd like to do is I'd like to share with you 15 ways that you can do exactly that. And what I've done is I've divided the 15 into 3 key sections. We're going to talk about counterintuitive marketing messages, counterintuitive marketing practices, and counterintuitive marketing pricing. So does this sound good? Thank God, that's what I've prepared, so good, okay. It's always that little moment when you worry. So all right, we're going to start at the top. We're going to start at counterintuitive marketing messages. And the first counterintuitive tactic is tell people they don't have to buy. Now, I know you're thinking, but Nancy, I spend a lot of time and effort and money into putting my marketing messages out there, and frankly, I advertise because I want to turn people into customers. So why are you telling me I should tell people they don't have to buy? Well, the reason has to do with something that behavioral scientists call autonomy bias. And what the behavioral scientists have found is humans like to feel like we have some kind of control. We like to exert some kind of control over ourselves and our environments. We do not like to be told what to do. And so as a result, what we as marketers should do is we should tap into something known as the BYAF technique. BYAF stands for but you are free. And what behavioral scientists have found is you can tell someone what you want them to do, you can ask them to do it, but then if you follow up that request with words like, but you are free to choose, or the choice is yours, or it's up to you, you can on average double the likelihood that people will do what you're asking them to do. There was some really interesting research that came out of the University of Bordeaux. The researchers there went to a bus station and they posed as panhandlers. And they would ask people for money in one of 2 different ways. Sometimes they would say, sorry, would you have some coins to take the bus, please? And other times they would say, sorry, do you have some coins to take the bus, please? But you're free to accept or refuse. And when they added that second sentence, 4 times as many people gave them money to take the bus. And the average amount that they were given was higher. So how do we use this in our marketing campaigns? Well, here's something from the Hartford. Hartford sells car insurance, and they want you to switch your car insurance from whoever you're using to them. So look at what they say. They say, make a quick call today, see what we can save. Once you know, you're free to choose. Or here we have something from WBUR. They're a national public radio station. And NPR stations, they depend a lot on the money that their members give them for memberships. So they kind of talk about what they've done over the last year, the great programming they have, and then they say, would you be willing to support WBUR and renew your membership for another year? The choice is yours. Or here we have a financial company, and they want you to take the money that you have elsewhere and move it to some of their funds. So they say, if you want more control and the potential to grow your money, check out your options today. The choice is yours. So they've got a lot of autonomy in there, right? Choices, control, and then of course that magic, but you are free phrase, the choice is yours. So remember, remind people it's their choice to respond. And I know some of you are thinking, well, okay, Nancy, fine, I can give people choices, but the truth of the matter is there's a particular choice I really would like them to make, and that's okay. I have a pro tip for you, and that is if you're ever using those yes-no buttons to give people choices, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the copy on your no button frames the consequences of not saying yes. So here we have yes, get the free case study now versus nah, I'd rather not know how my marketing is performing. Well, when you put it that way, I think I better get the case study. There was some research that was reported in the Journal of Marketing Research and then published in the new neuromarketing blog, which is published in the Netherlands. And what they found was properly framed yes-no buttons can get you anywhere between a 40 and a 125% lift in conversion. Okay, counterintuitive tactic number 2, make a request you know they'll refuse. Now, some of you might be thinking, Nancy, it is hard enough for me to get people to say yes. It's hard enough for me to get people to respond to my marketing messages. There are days when I'm positively euphoric if I get a 2% response rate, right? Like if somebody is responding, I'm very happy. So why would I ask people to do something that I already know they're going to say no to? Doesn't that set me up to fail? Actually, no. It could set you up to succeed. And here's why. Behavioral scientists have identified something called the door-in-your-face technique. And let me tell you a little bit about the research that went into it. So researchers go out and they ask people, would you be willing to spend a Saturday afternoon accompanying a group of juvenile delinquents to the zoo? Most people said no, right? They don't know these kids. They have better things to do with their Saturday afternoons. So then researchers, they tried another tactic. They went out and they asked people, would you be willing to commit to 2 hours a week for the next 2 years counseling juvenile delinquents? And here again, most people said no. But then the researchers did something interesting. They stacked the 2 questions. So they went out to people and they said, would you be willing to spend 2 hours a week for the next 2 years counseling juvenile delinquents? And people said no. And they said, well, all right, how about this? Would you spend one Saturday afternoon accompanying them to the zoo? Well, here, 50% of them said yes. Now, when the question had been asked alone, virtually nobody agreed to go to the zoo. But when the question came after the larger, less reasonable request, half of the people said yes. So what do we want to do? We want to start with a larger request that we don't really expect people are going to say yes to. If they do, great, but it's not really what we want. We start with that. When people say no, we then pivot and we ask what we really want to get the yes to. And the reason for this is human beings are hardwired to get along, to be cooperative. It's what helped us kind of ensure the survival of our species. Like, we don't like to repeatedly say no. So how do we use this in our marketing? Well, imagine it's your job to get appointments for your salespeople to speak with prospects. So, you could reach out to a prospect and say, hey, ready to set up that product demo meeting? And the prospect might very well say, no thanks. And you say, well, all right, how about this? How about we get together and we review a quick case study? It's in your vertical, the results are really good, I think you really like it. Much more likely to get a yes there, and you have succeeded in setting up an appointment for your salesperson. Or maybe you work for a fundraising company. I know there's at least one person out here that I met going up on the escalator who works in fundraising, so we got something here for you. Say you're working at a fundraising company and you're like, how about joining the 100-mile bike-a-thon for sick kids? And the person you're talking to might be like, 100 miles? I don't think so. No, I don't really cycle. So then you quickly pivot and say, well, all right, how about sponsoring one of our existing riders? You're going to get the money. That's what you want anyway. You get the yes. Or here's another example. Maybe you represent a computer company, and you're trying to get people to buy your computers. So you say, look, how about replacing all of your firm's computers with ours? And someone might be like, it's kind of a big ask. I don't know if I can get that through. Like, well, all right, how about this? Why not start with just one department? HR or marketing, it's your choice. So you can see you can combine those two, the first and the second tactics here. So remember, lead with the big request and then pivot to a more reasonable one. The big request isn't really what you're after. What you want is you want to get the yes to that second request. And here's a pro tip. Use the phrase, would you be willing? A lot of times we say, how do you feel about this? Would you like to do this? Do you want this? And that's all about personal preference. But when you say to somebody, would you be willing? Well, that's about somebody's character. And we're much more concerned about that. If it's about my character, well, I want to be thought of as someone who's open-minded, somebody who's willing to entertain other people's opinions or other people's questions. If you say, do you want to do this? That's preferences. It's very easy for me to say, no, I don't. So use would you be willing. All right, our third counterintuitive messaging tactic is state the obvious. And you may say, but Nancy, why would I state the obvious? Like, shouldn't my marketing messages tell people something they don't know, something new or exciting or different? Like, why would I tell people something they already know? Well, you're right. If you have something new, exciting, and different to say, absolutely say it. But the truth of the matter is, as marketers, as advertisers, as brands, we don't always. Sometimes we don't have something new, exciting, and different to say. And that's where stating the obvious becomes important. Behavioral scientists have found that people are more likely to do what we ask them to do if we give them a reason why. And even better than that, they found out that the reason why doesn't have to be this ironclad, bulletproof reason. Having a reason why is more important than what the reason is. So there's a researcher named Ellen Langer. She came out of Harvard University, and she conducted something called the photocopier study. So there were a bunch of people lined up to use a photocopier. She sends someone to the head of the line, and she instructs that person to say, excuse me, can I cut in front of you? Well, 60% of the time, the person is allowed to cut, 60. I think that's high, okay? I realize that I am not as nice as I thought I was. But all right, 60% of the time, they can cut. Langer repeats the experiment a second time. This time, she sends someone to the head of the line, and she instructs them to say, excuse me, can I cut in front of you? Because I'm in a hurry, and I have some copies to make. Well, that 60% number, that baseline 60%, jumps up to 94%. But as I tell you this, you're thinking, well, Nancy, they said they were in a hurry. But Langer repeats the experiment a third time. This time, she sends someone to the head of the line, and she instructs them to say, excuse me, can I cut in front of you because I have some copies to make? You're with me, excellent. 94% number drops to 93%. Statistically insignificant. Still that same huge leap over the 60% baseline, right? Now, stop and think about it, as you already have. Everybody standing in that line was standing in that line because they had some copies to make. You don't stand in line at the IBM copier to get a Starbucks coffee. It doesn't work that way. But Langer identified the word because as an automatic compliance trigger. When we see or hear that word because, we just start to agree before we've even processed what comes next. We just assume whatever comes after that word because is a good, legitimate reason. So how do we use this in our marketing? Well, here we've got an e-newsletter. It's an investment e-newsletter, and they say, why am I getting this? You're receiving this e-newsletter because we thought this information might be beneficial to you. Well, of course, right? I mean, we don't send our e-newsletters to people we think have zero interest in our products and services. It would be, now if they said, hey, you're receiving this because if you follow these tips, you'll become a millionaire, that would be a real reason, but we can't say that. It's not true. So instead, they tell the truth. Well, we thought you might be interested, but it's just enough for us to go, oh, okay. Or here we have something from Land's End, and they say, bundle up for 50% off because we know it's cold. Well, it's winter. They sent this out in the middle of December. They're selling parkas. Chances are they're sending it to people where it's cold, right? Kind of obvious. Here we have something from Middlesex Savings Bank, and they say, because you're already a valued customer of ours, we'd very much like to do more business with you. Well, what company do you know that doesn't want to do more business with their customers, right? Of course. But I talked to the good folks at Middlesex Savings Bank. They said this was one of the most successful marketing messages they ever put out there. They got a lot of business because of it. So remember, sometimes it pays to state the obvious. And here's a pro tip. Consider saying something that others in your industry could say, but don't. So Mobil is all about the fact that they have detergent gasoline. They say, drive your engine clean. Well, it turns out, and I just recently found this out, that all gasoline has detergent in it. I guess all of it does, right? But they're the only ones who talk about it. And once they stake that claim, now we think of them as the detergent gasoline, the place where I can drive my engine clean. And any other gasoline, any other petrol company that wants to say, oh, we do that too, well, they're a Me Too brand, right? These guys kind of carved it out. Anybody in the industry could have said it, but they were the first to say it, and now they own it. All right, the fourth of our counterintuitive marketing tactics is tell people they'll pay more instead of telling them they'll save. Now, I know you're thinking, Nancy, that makes no sense. We know that people love to save. Why on earth would you tell me to tell them that they're going to pay more? Well, the reason has to do with something called loss aversion. And what behavioral scientists have found is people are actually twice as motivated to avoid the pain of loss as they are to achieve the pleasure of gain. But do you see the problem there? Because what do we do in marketing? What do we do in advertising? We focus on the gains, the advantages, the wonderful things that will happen if you just do what I'm asking you to do. But it turns out that people are twice as motivated to avoid the pain of loss as they are to achieve the pleasure of gain. There was a research experiment that was reported in the Journal of Applied Psychology. And people went out and they were talking to homeowners about home insulation. And they said, if you insulate your home, you can save 50 cents a day. But other people they talked to, they said, if you fail to insulate your home, you will lose 50 cents a day. Well, when it was positioned that way, as losing 50 cents a day, they got 150% more people saying, yes, I want to sign up for the home insulation. So how do we use this in our marketing? Well, here's something from ProFlowers. They say, order Kathy's gift today or pay more. Prices increase tomorrow. Now, normally, what would we do? We would say, hey, buy today and you can save, right? Save today, save money today. We're having a sale. That's what we would normally do. That would be a marketing inclination. But they're saying you're going to pay more if you don't order today. And that's the thing. Loss aversion kind of cuts through the clutter and gets us to pay attention. Or here's a conference. They say you'll be paying $300 more tomorrow. They're not saying save $300 today. Or here's one of those insurance aggregators. And they say many drivers in Massachusetts are overpaying. Now, they could have said, we've helped many drivers in Massachusetts save money. But no, they say many are overpaying. Why? Because people don't like to overpay. We love to save, no question about it. But what we love even more is knowing that we didn't spend more for the same thing that someone else paid less for. And here's a pro tip. Use the words don't miss. Instead of saying take advantage of or get in on, the words don't miss are just enough to trigger that idea of loss aversion because we don't like to miss out. Humans are hardwired to not want to miss out. All right, the fifth of our 15 counterintuitive tactics, tell people your phone number might be busy when they call to buy or when they call to donate. And I know some of you are thinking, Nancy, you have lost your mind, right? Why, when I'm trying so hard to get someone to respond, to get someone to pick up the phone, why would I say to them at the moment they're about ready to pick up the phone or pull out their cell phone and punch in my numbers, why would I say, oh, by the way, you might not be able to get through? Well, the reason has to do with something called social proof. And I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of social proof. It's the idea that we do what other people like us do. When we're not entirely sure of what to do, we do what people like us do. And social proof was used very, very well by a copywriter named Colleen Zott. Colleen Zott was writing the scripts for direct response television spots and infomercials for a company that sold exercise equipment. And typically, the response in those kinds of situations, direct response TV or infomercials, typically the call to action is, operators are waiting, please call now. She changed 3 words, and she shattered a 20-year sales record. She changed it from operators are waiting, please call now, to if operators are busy, please call again. 3-word change shattered a 20-year sales record. So how do we use that? Well, if anyone has seen the Shriners Children's Hospital spots, they do a really good job of kind of updating this. They say, if operators are busy, please call again or go to loveshriners.org, right? They give you the impression that a lot of people are calling, but they also give you an alternate way to respond. Just go to our website. Well, here we've got an internet company, and it's the last chance for people to get in on a really good deal in their neighborhood. So they say, give us a call, and if the line's busy, hang up and redial. Or here we have a career college, and this is one of their control letters, which is the letter that does better than anything else that they've mailed. And it says, use your cell phone or home phone to call us as soon as you receive this. And if the line is busy, redial right away. So remember, people do what other people like them do. So you want to let people know that other people are buying your product, they're subscribing to your service. Let them know that people are signing up and buying, and they're going to do the same thing, right? Think about that person who was sitting there watching the infomercial or the DRTV spot about the exercise equipment, and they were thinking, yeah, maybe I should get that. The doctor said I should probably lose a little weight. And then all of a sudden you hear, wow, if operators are busy, you think a lot of other people who are watching the same television program, thinking the same thing I am, probably could be a little bit healthier. They're calling. I'd better call now too. So remind people, other people like them are already doing what you're asking them to do. And here's a pro tip, though. Social proof is really, really powerful, so you have to be careful of social proof backfires. So imagine you're selling life insurance. And so you might say, many people wait to buy life insurance, but here's why you should get it when you're younger. People focus on the many people wait to buy, and they're like, good, I've been waiting to buy mine too. I guess I'll continue to wait. A lot of people, just like me, haven't bought it. So it reinforces the bad behavior as opposed to triggering the good behavior. So social proof is really powerful. You just have to be very careful of how you word things, because you don't want to reinforce the negative behavior. You want to prompt the positive behavior. All right, those were our first 5 of the 15 counterintuitive tactics. Now we're going to do 5 more, and these are counterintuitive marketing practices. So counterintuitive tactic number 6 is advertise your shortcomings. And I know you're thinking, Nancy, why are you telling me to advertise my shortcomings? I mean, I spend a lot of money on my marketing, and I get it, nobody is perfect, but why would I spend my marketing money telling people about my imperfections? Shouldn't I instead tell them about what I'm really, really good at? Like, wouldn't that be a better way to spend my marketing money? Why would I tell them about my shortcomings? Well, the reason you might want to tell them about your shortcomings is because it could increase brand favorability. It can actually make people like you more. So there was a researcher at Harvard, his name was Elliot Aronson, and he identified something called the pratfall effect. This is what he did. He had somebody audition for a quiz show, but what he did is he fed the guy all the answers. So he does the audition for the quiz show, and as you might imagine, he gets all these answers right because he'd been fed the answers ahead of time. So he's doing the audition, and he's just hitting every answer right, hitting every answer right, hitting every answer right. And then he finishes the audition, stands up to leave, spills coffee down his suit. He's like, oh my God, I just spilled coffee down my suit, right? So Aronson has 2 versions of the tape. He has the version of the tape where the guy is just answering every question properly, and then it cuts off there. But then he has another version where it's the full tape. The guy's answering every question properly, but it also includes at the end when he's like, oh man, I just spilled coffee all over my new suit. So he plays the tape for people, and he asks people to evaluate the guy. And in both cases, everyone thought the guy was really smart, no question there. But in the version where they could hear him spilling the coffee all over his suit, they rated him as more likable. Right? He just seemed more like us, right? I mean, the guy was clearly brilliant. He got all the answers right, but he's still kind of human, right? He still managed to spill coffee on his suit, something I would do, right? He just seemed more likable. So how do we use this in marketing? Well, if there's anyone here from Canada, you might know about Buckley's cough syrup. Since 1986, they've gone with this "it tastes awful and it works" positioning. When they rolled that out, they were kind of a small player. Within 6 or 8 years, they became the #1 cough syrup in Canada. Today, they're owned by Novartis, right? Now, it tastes awful and it works. They're not saying that it doesn't work, and that's the important thing. When you're using the pratfall effect, you don't want to point out a shortcoming that would mean that your product isn't any good, but a lot of cough syrups, they put in cherry or grape flavoring, and they're saying, look, ours doesn't taste great, but it does work. Or Heinz ketchup, #1 selling ketchup in the world. But it's hard to get out of the bottle, isn't it, right? So they lean into it. At one point, they even had the labels on their bottles put on askew so that the only time the label looked like it was upright was when the bottle was at the perfect angle to make the ketchup pour out faster. Pretty smart idea, right? They also used the song Anticipation, kind of just underscoring how long it takes to get out of the bottle. Or here we have something from Oatly, right? #1 alt milk, or #1 in the alt milk category, and you can see what they're saying. Now, of course, they say, now, of course, other people do like the way we taste, and those people enjoy all the benefits of our product. So remember, admitting a shortcoming can make you more appealing. It can also make you stand out, because you take a double take. Did Oatly just say that? What? Why is the label crooked on the ketchup bottle, right? It makes you stand out, and it just makes you more likable, right? It's like, look, we're not perfect, but you'd really like our product. And here's a pro tip. If there's something that you need to kind of get out of the way, say it, and then immediately say but. So I don't have a degree in data science, but I have 3 years of practical experience. We're a small agency, but that means our top people always work on your business, right? What happens is people forget about everything that led up to the word but, and they focus on everything that comes after the word but. So if there's something you need to get out of the way, put it out there, followed by but, and then explain why it's really not that much of an issue. All right, counterintuitive tactic number 7. Do not lead with your most positive word of mouth. And I know you're thinking, Nancy, it is not easy to get good reviews. It is not easy to get good testimonials. And if somebody comes along who happens to think I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread, why wouldn't I plaster that all over the place? Why wouldn't I make that my lead word of mouth message? Well, the reason you might not want to do this comes down to trust. 3 researchers from Tilburg University in the Netherlands did a deep dive analysis of Yelp reviews. And what they found was the Yelp reviews that mentioned some kind of doubt, a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of uncertainty, those were the ones that were trusted more. Those were the ones that people found more helpful. And those were the ones that, as a result, were better for the brand. And if you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because if somebody's reading the reviews, if they're reading the testimonials, it's probably because they haven't been completely sold yet. They're wondering, is it as good as the marketer says it is? Is it going to work for me? Is it better than this other company, this other product I'm considering, right? These are all the things that are going through their head. And if you can acknowledge that and then bring them to the, oh, and yes, our company is wonderful, that's a much stronger use of word of mouth. So let's look at a few examples. Here's a product called Quell. And what it is it's a pain relief product. And they say, I was very skeptical. Previously, I had 2 spinal surgeries and could only control pain with strong prescription medication. Quell has substantially reduced the amount of pain meds I need. So you read about Quell and you think, oh man, I could really use something that would work. I'm in horrible pain, but I wonder if it would work for me. I mean, I have exceptionally bad pain. And then you read that and you're like, wow, well, that guy seems to have exceptionally bad pain as well, and it worked for him. Maybe I'll give it a try. Or here we have something from HubSpot, and they say, if you're contemplating HubSpot as your CRM, stop thinking about it and do it. We were a Salesforce-heavy organization. We recently made the switch. We have 100% user adoption, and we couldn't be happier. And you read that, and you're like, wow, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, I don't know. I kind of want to make the switch, but what if people don't adopt it? What if they don't like it? But this guy did it, and it worked for him. Maybe it'll work for me. Or here we have something from the Hartford. That was that car insurance agency I talked about early on. And the guy comes right out, or the woman comes right out and says, I was skeptical at first because the Hartford does have substantially lower premiums than other companies. I was worried that this might mean lesser service, but in reality, they're the best. And so you see that, and you're like, yeah, because, they do have good prices, but you figure something's got to give. If the prices are lower, maybe they're cutting corners elsewhere. But this person tried it, and he says, no, they're actually very good. So don't be afraid to bring up something negative. I know we think, I don't want to plant the seed. Like, I don't want to mention the fact that, well, we have lower prices, so you might worry about our service being, inferior. I don't want to plant that seed, but trust me, people are already thinking about it. They're already wondering if they're reading those reviews, if they're reading the testimonials. So get it out there, explain why it's no longer an issue. Okay, and here's a pro tip. Don't show only 5-star reviews. And I know, we love 5-star reviews. We ask people, hey, give us a 5-star review if you're happy with us, right? Like, we love 5-star reviews. The problem with 5-star reviews is people are suspicious, right? They're not sure. It's like, wait a minute, this company, this product has nothing but 5-star reviews. Something seems a little off here. Researchers at Northwestern University found that the optimum number of stars is between 4.2 and 4.5. It means you've got plenty of 5-star reviews, but it means not all of them are 5-star reviews. So don't worry if you don't get all 5-star reviews. You seem more credible, more believable. All right, counterintuitive tactic number 8. Disregard what prospects tell you. Disregard what your customers and your prospects tell you. And you may say, what? That makes no sense. If I am lucky enough to get my customers and prospects to answer my survey or to sit in a focus group and answer my questions, like, wouldn't that be marketing gold? Like, why? Why would I disregard that? Well, the reason you would disregard that, or you might want to disregard that, or you might want to disregard part of it, is because people lie. People lie. They don't mean to, they don't deliberately want to mislead you, but a lot of times people do not know why they do what they do. They don't know why they like what they like. They'll tell you what they think is the correct reason, but very often there are other factors at play that influence people's decisions, and people aren't even aware of them. David Ogilvy has a really good quote. He says, people don't think what they feel, and people make decisions for emotional reasons. So feelings are important, but people don't think what they feel, they don't say what they think, and they don't do what they say. And researchers actually proved that this was the case. They set up a two-part experiment. So in the first part of the experiment, people were given these various word pairs to memorize. So just a series of word pairs that they had to memorize. And then in the second part of the experiment, they were given a list of product categories, and they were asked to mention a brand name that matched that category. And what happened was, for people who had that list of word pairs to memorize, and their word pairs included ocean and moon, when they were asked to name a detergent, twice as many of them said Tide. Well, because you think about ocean tides, moon, right? Ocean, moon, tide, they're all related. So twice as many of the people said Tide if ocean, moon was one of the pairs that they had to memorize. If it was not in their word list, they were much less likely to say it. But here's what's really telling. Because people said, oh, detergent, Tide, and so they were prompted to, or they were asked, they were probed, well, what made you say Tide? And they said stuff that was, music to a marketer's ears. They were like, oh, Tide is the leading, detergent out there, leading laundry detergent out there. Oh, I use Tide myself. Oh, I've heard very good things. If we were sitting in the back room of a focus group, we would be ecstatic hearing all of that. But it turns out you can't really trust it, because twice as many people said that simply because they've been primed with ocean, moon. So what's our takeaway? What can we take away from all of this? Well, think about marketing and the times when we have been misled by research, right? There's New Coke. We all know what happened with that. The story's kind of old, but still. And I'm an equal opportunity cola maligner, because there was also Crystal Pepsi. I think it lasted 16 months, maybe. And then, does anyone remember Lay's with Olestra? Oh yeah, that did not go well, not at all. So the truth of the matter is, we do all of this research, we think we're making these great decisions, but again, people aren't always able to articulate what they really feel. So don't believe everything you hear, even if it's from your customers. So what do you do instead? Well, here's a pro tip. Consider augmenting your research with a neuro-based research company. There's 3 of them listed there. I have no affiliation with any of the 3. There are others that are out there. But what they do is they have different techniques that help get at how people are really responding to your product, to your packaging, to your marketing materials, that don't depend on self-reported data. They use facial coding and eye tracking, biometrics, and brain activity. It's really a great way to augment marketing research. All right, the 9th of our counterintuitive tactics is shout in your subject lines. And I'm sure you all know we've been told that we should not shout in our subject lines, right? We shouldn't all cap words in our subject lines, because that's considered shouting. And if we wouldn't shout at our customers if we were right in front of them, why would we all cap our subject lines if that is translated as shouting? Well, hold on a second. It turns out that there's a very good reason that you might want to consider shouting in your subject lines. There's a company called World Data. They analyze about 50 million emails every year. And what they found was, if you all cap a word or two, as long as it's fewer than half of the words in your subject line, you can get a 21% increase in your opening rate. And the reason has to do with something called the von Restorff effect. And the von Restorff effect is kind of a fancy name for this idea that humans notice and remember things that are different from their surroundings, right? We are hardwired to notice things that stand out from their horizon, surroundings. This goes way back to our caveman days, right? Caveman days, sun starts to come up, we stick our head out of the cave, we scan the horizon, right? If everything looks the way it did the day before, that was great. But if something new had been introduced to the horizon, or if something had been removed, that could pose a threat. And back in those days, it was a real life or death threat. And all these years later, we are still hardwired to notice things that are different. And because most people aren't all capping words in their subject lines, the people who are all capping a word or two are getting noticed. And when it comes to email marketing, getting noticed is half the battle. So what you want to do is you want to be strategic about how you use this. You want to make sure it's fewer than half of the words, and you want to use a word or two that's really going to quickly signal to people the essence of your message. Maybe it's their final chance. Maybe now is when they have to do something. Maybe they still have an opportunity, but be strategic, right? All cap for emphasis and be strategic about the words that you choose. And here's a pro tip as we're talking about the von Restorff effect in emails. Put the first word or two of your subject line inside of brackets or parentheses. World Data finds you can get a 28% increase in your opening rate if you do that. And again, if every marketer starts doing that, and people open up their inbox and it's nothing but parentheses, they're going to cancel each other out. But right now, not everyone is, which means you have a big opportunity. All right, the 10th of our 15 counterintuitive tactics is deliberately use the wrong word or spelling. Yes, you heard that right. Deliberately use the wrong word or spelling. And I know if any of you have ever heard me speak before, you might have heard me talk about the fact that I'm a huge fan of proofreading. I think it's very important to proofread your marketing materials. And it's not that our customers and prospects won't forgive us for a typo. They get it. They know we make mistakes. But if we made a mistake in our marketing materials and we didn't catch it, where else are we cutting corners? Where else might we have lax quality control? Where else might there be a problem? Maybe it's customer service. Maybe it's in the product design. Maybe I'm not going to be happy. So I always say, make sure you proofread your marketing materials. So why am I standing here today on this stage telling you to deliberately use the wrong word or spelling? Well, the reason has to do with the psychology of surprise. Researchers at University of Glasgow found that when people are surprised, it amplifies their emotions by about 400%. It intensifies or amplifies their emotions by about 400%. So why do we care as marketers? Well, we care for two reasons. Because when our emotions are intensified, we focus on the thing that surprised us, and we're more likely to remember it. And what do we want in marketing? We want people to focus on our marketing messages. We want them to remember our marketing messages. So using surprise can help us accomplish those goals. So how do we do that? Well, just like with the all-cap idea, we want to do it strategically. So here we've got a company called Anthropology, and they're selling clothes, and they're particularly advertising a sale on denim. So they say pure genius, but they misspell genius. Instead of using G-E-N, they spell it J-E-A-N, like jeans, like blue jeans, right? So your first reaction when you see that is, oh, they spelled it wrong. They've also used the caps, which helps, but you're like, oh, they made a mistake there. And they're like, oh, I get it. They're having a sale on denim. So it captures your attention, and it kind of primes you, prepares you, puts you in the mood for the message, right? Or here we have Uniqlo, and they say, find your inner peace. And you're like, that's supposed to be peace, P-E-A-C-E. That is the wrong word. They used the wrong word. But then you're like, oh, wait a minute. No, they're having a sale on camisoles, which are pieces that you wear, under another shirt, right? It's an inner piece. I get it. So it captures your attention, and it primes you for the message. Or here we have Sears, and they say it's been a long winter. And you're like, oh my God, someone must have been using like voice dictation, and they got it wrong, because it's supposed to be long, L-O-N-G, right? It's been a long winter. But they ended up with lawn, and you're like, oh wait, it's from the patio shop. The very people who sell, or the very department who sell, lawn furniture. So it captures your attention, and it sets you up for the message. So this is why you want to strategically use the wrong word. You want to capture and direct attention. And here's a pro tip. If you want more people to buy, consider using the word B-Y-E. If you want more people to buy, B-U-Y, purchase, consider using the homophone, which is the matching word, the word that sounds alike but has a different meaning and a different spelling. When you use the word B-Y-E, buy, it makes people think of the matching word, B-U-Y, and the actions associated with it, purchasing. So researchers actually ran an interesting experiment. They had people read some marketing copy. And in both cases, it was the same marketing copy that each group read. The only difference was one group read the marketing copy, and at the very end, it said goodbye. And the other people read the exact same marketing copy, but at the end, it didn't say goodbye. It said so long, right? Goodbye, so long. And then people were handed a menu, and they were asked to order some food from a restaurant that had just opened nearby. And the people who read the marketing copy that ended with goodbye actually spent $15 more on average than the people who read the marketing copy that ended with so long. Pretty interesting stuff, right? So put in bye or goodbye or bye-bye and just seed that idea, prime people to make a purchase. All right, we're closing in on our final 5 counterintuitive tactics, and these have to do with pricing. So counterintuitive tactic number 11, lead with your highest price. And I know some of you are thinking, oh, Nancy, no, I'd never want to lead with my highest price because I'm going to scare people away. If people see my highest price, they might think they can't afford the things that I have. They're going to walk away and they're going to find somebody else. So I'm going to lead with my more affordable prices, and then I can always, share the more expensive things once I've pulled them into the fold, right? Makes sense. But no, because if you do that, you're failing to take advantage of something called price order effect. And here's how price order effect works. There were some researchers in Colorado, and they ran an experiment. And they ran the experiment at a pub. So anytime a researcher runs an experiment at a pub, I'm all ears. I'm like, oh, this is going to be interesting, right? So what they did is they changed the way they listed the beers that were available. So some weeks they would list the most expensive beer all the way down to the least expensive beer. And then in other weeks they would list the least expensive beer and they would build all the way down to the most expensive beer. And at the end of the experiment, what they found was when they led with the most expensive and worked their way down to the least expensive, they had a 4.2 increase in revenue, because they were taking advantage of price order effect. Because think about it, people, they take a look, and some people just grab the first beer on the list. So if it's the most expensive one, great. Other people are like, I don't want to get the most expensive one, but I'll take the second one. Other people, again, they just grab the first beer on the list. Some people might say, the first beer is really cheap, I better not go with that, but I'll take the second cheapest one, I'll go with that. It's human nature, right? It's human behavior, it's how we behave. So what they found was, the researchers found that you're better off leading with your most expensive price and working your way down. So how do we use this in our marketing? Well, here's Wix, and you can see right on the left, their most expensive plan is listed first. It's their $39 plan. Now, some people might think, okay, that's great. Other people might be like, ooh, that's a little expensive, but oh, look, that 22 one, that looks pretty good. Or that $17 a month one, that looks pretty affordable. Or here's social media marketing world. They do something similar. They lead with their most expensive option, and then they list 3 others. But they also add this column of yeses and nos. So their most expensive option has nothing but yeses. And then you go to their second most expensive option, and that's got a few nos populated in there. And you get all the way down to their cheapest, and there's only a single yes. So it's a nice way of showing you what you're giving up, what you're losing. I mean, remember, people, loss aversion, we don't like to lose. It's a good way of showing people what they're losing as they start to trade down. Now you may say, but Nancy, I don't have a number of products or a range of services. I just sell this one thing. Boy, I wish I could use price order effect. You're in luck, you can. And this is how you do it. Here's a mosquito repellent watch. And so they say, with features like this, it wouldn't be surprising to see this watch sold for $150 or more. But you get down to the next paragraph, we sell it for $39.99. So because they dropped that $150 mention up front, when we get to the $39.99, we're like, that's a much better deal. So remember, lead with your higher prices. That's the beauty of price order effect. And here's a pro tip. Use left digit bias. So in countries that read from left to right, like here in the States, but any country that reads left to right, we place undue emphasis. We place more emphasis on the first number we encounter in a price. So here we have $501 and $498. There's only a $3 difference between those, but it feels much bigger than that. It feels like a $100 difference, because we look at the 501 and we're like, oh, that's in the $500 range. And we look at the 498 and we're like, oh, that's in the $400 range, $100 difference. So think carefully about how you price things, because that first digit is what people really zero in on. All right, we're up to the 12th of our 15 counterintuitive tactics, and this is when product sales slow, introduce a costlier option. And you might be like, what? What did you just say? Wait a minute. You're saying that when people kind of stop buying my product, when they don't want to spend the money for my product, I should introduce a more expensive version of my product? Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. I know these things don't always make sense, but they do make money. It's called decoy pricing. Williams-Sonoma actually used this with their bread maker. So they introduced their bread maker, they've got some initial sales, and then things taper off. And the people at Williams-Sonoma are trying to figure out what to do. Do we discontinue it? Do we reduce the price? What do we do? But they decided instead to introduce a costlier one, right? Instead of having the $275 version, they now introduce a $415 version. It has some more sophisticated bells and whistles, not that many, but a few more bells and whistles, and a considerably higher price tag. And you know what happened? Twice as many people ended up buying the $275 version, the original one. It doubled their sales. People look at the two on the shelf and they're like, I don't know, they both look good, but this one's a much better deal. I'll take the $275 one. Managed to double their sales. So how do we use that? Well, here's WordPress, and they've got a range of different options, but the one on the right is $600. That's considerably more than the $145, the $58, the $30, the $15. I think that is their decoy price. Or here's a very common example. If anyone's ever gone to the movies to buy popcorn, the small popcorn is $3. The medium is considerably more. It's $6.50. But the large is only 50 cents more than the medium. $6.50 for a medium, $7 for a large. What do you think people do? It's human nature. Like, oh, it's only 50 cents more. Much better deal for me to buy the large. So in this particular case, the medium price is the decoy price. Or here's something from a magazine called Communication Arts. And you can see that they're offering the magazine subscription for $53. They're offering the online only for $28.95. And in the middle, they're offering both the magazine subscription, the print one, and the online for $53, the same price as the magazine print subscription alone. So print alone, $53, print and digital, $53, digital alone, $28.95. And I believe what they're doing is they're tapping into some work from Dan Ariely, well-known behavioral economist, and he ran some experiments using The Economist magazine. And what he found was if you just have the print and you just have the online is cheaper, more people go for it. But when you introduce this idea of the combo for the same price as print alone, it seems like a really good deal. And so everyone goes for, not everyone, but more people go for that, right? So in this case, the print alone was the decoy. They weren't really expecting people to get the print alone, but it was going to make more people buy that combo, and fewer people buy the less expensive just digital option. So remember, strategically price your options. Excuse me, think carefully about how you price things like that. The popcorn, it wasn't like 2, 4, 6, same increments along the way. No, they made the medium much more expensive than the small, but only a little less expensive than the large. So think strategically about it. And here's a pro tip. Consider ending your prices with 9. Behavioral scientists call this charm pricing, right? It could be 99 cents, or it could be 29, 39, 49, but prices ending in 9 have this interesting effect on people. We just assume the prices are going to be good. Researchers at University of Chicago and MIT ran an experiment. They took an article of women's clothing, and they offered it separately at either $34, $39, or $44. And it sold best at $39. Not the cheapest option, but all things being equal, it sold best at $39. Because when we see 9, we just assume it's going to be a good deal. We're cruising along on autopilot. We're not really thinking. We're just responding. 9s make people respond. In fact, William Poundstone wrote a book called Priceless, and he found that you get a 24% increase in sales if you use prices ending in 9 versus rounding them up. All right, counterintuitive tactic number 13 of our 15 is ask for just a small purchase. And you may say, but Nancy, I'm trying to stay in business here. I'm trying to grow my business. I want to sell things. Why would I just ask for a small purchase? Like, I really like people to buy a lot, to buy my most expensive things. Well, the reason you might want to just ask for a small purchase has to do with something called commitment and consistency. And what behavioral scientists have found is once people make a decision, they like to remain consistent with it when future opportunities arise. And this is particularly true if the first decision they make is a relatively small one. So if you can ask someone to do something that's relatively small and they say yes, then they're much more likely to say yes a second time, a third time, a fourth time, and you can start to escalate. You can start to increase your asks, and people just kind of go along with it. Researchers went out to LA, and they ran this experiment. They went out to LA, and they asked people, how do you feel about safe driving? And as you might imagine, people said they were in favor of it. Kind of hard not to be in favor of safe driving, right? But then they said, well, great, I'm so glad you're in favor of safe driving. How about putting up a billboard on your front lawn saying that you support safe driving? Well, here people kind of backed off. They're like, I don't want to put up a billboard. What are my neighbors going to think? What's it going to do to my view? What's it going to do to my property value? No, I don't want to put up a billboard. Only 17% of the people agreed. But there was a small subsegment. And in that small subsegment, 76, over 3/4 of the people, 76% of the people agreed. So we have to say, what was so different about those people? Well, what was so different about them was a couple of weeks prior, researchers had come through, and they'd asked people if they would display a small 3-inch by 3-inch sign saying that they supported safe driving. Those people had said yes. So when researchers came back and said, now how about a billboard, the commitment and consistency principle kicked in. They didn't really think about the billboard the way other people did, from ground zero or square one. No, for them, it was very easy to use the decision-making shortcut, right? It was consistent with their previous behavior. It was consistent with the stand they took on safe driving. It was consistent with how they saw themselves as being like a person who was, active in social good. It was just very easy for them to say yes to the billboard. So how do we use this in our marketing? Well, here's Delta, and they're offering a 30-day Delta Sky Club membership for just $90. Now, the reason they do that is they know that at the end of the 30 days, they can go back to these people and say, now how about upgrading to a full year? And these people are much more likely to say yes. More likely than perhaps if they had gone to them originally and just said, how about signing up for a year? You get that first small yes, and then you start to increase your asks. Or here we have Harry's Shave Club. They offer a $3 trial set. They lose money on it, but they make money on the back end with the subscriptions. Or here we have a free makeup sampler. I think maybe the only thing you pay is shipping, right? But otherwise it's free, perfectly free, but yet once you sample the makeup, once you decide what you like, they follow up and say, all right, now that you know what you like, would you like to make a purchase? You're much more likely to make that purchase. So remember, start small and build. If you can get that first small yes, you're much more likely to get that second yes, that third yes, that fourth yes. Sometimes if your ask is too big initially, you'll get a no. And once you get that no, it's really kind of hard to turn it around. And here's a pro tip. Again, this is for my fundraising friends in the audience. Tell people even a penny will help. When you're asking for contributions, you're asking for donations, say even a penny will help. The American Cancer Society did this. They took their donation rate from 28 to 50% because it just made people feel that even if they only had a little bit, no matter what they had, it was going to be okay. They didn't have to be giving these vast sums. Like anything they gave would be good. And of course, none of them just gave a penny. All right, the 14th of our 15 tactics is limit the amount people can buy. And you may again say to me, but Nancy, if people are ready to buy, if they have their credit card in their hand, if they are ready to buy, why would I tell them they can only have a certain amount, a certain number of something? Let them buy as much as they want. That's what's going to keep me in business. But here's why. It has to do with something called anchoring. And researchers ran a really interesting experiment. They put Campbell's soup on sale. And a nice price on Campbell's soup. And on average, people came in, they saw the Campbell's soup on sale, they saw the good price, and they bought 3.3 cans, right? On average, they bought 3.3 cans. But then the researchers added something to the sign. Same soup, same price, but they said limit 12. All of a sudden, the average number of cans increased to 7, okay? 112% increase. When people just saw the sale, they were like, yeah, I can go for 3 or 4 cans. But when people saw limit 12, they were like, oh my gosh, I can only get 12? Well, maybe I don't need 12, but I think I'll maybe grab 9 or 6 or 7, right? And these must be incredibly popular if they're putting a limit on it. And gosh, I better grab them now because they might run out because they have to limit them. All of these things happen with this idea of anchoring. People were anchored on that 12, and they went down from there. So how do we use it in our marketing? Well, this past Christmas, I was thinking about picking up the Monopoly Chance game, new Monopoly Chance game. I go to order it. I was only going to order 1. I go onto Amazon to order it, and I find out I can only have 3. I'm like, oh, maybe I should get a second one, right? Wasn't thinking about it, but if I can only have 3, maybe I want all 3, or maybe I at least want 2, right? If I'm told I can only have a certain amount, I'm going to react to it. Or here we have Lenovo, again, last Christmas, and they have an e-coupon, but it's limited to 5 units. And again, you might think, wow, I wasn't really thinking about getting 5, but some people are clearly getting 5, and then they're paying full price for the 6th and the 7th that they might be buying. Maybe I should get more than 1. Or here we've got some women's clothing, and they say limit 5 per customer. And I love the per customer idea, because if you really want these, you're like, oh man, I can only have 5, but if I bring my friend with me and I get her to buy 5, I got 10. I just beat the system. But hey, it's a win-win, because it's great for the retailer as well as for the customer. So remember, a limit can anchor and increase purchase amounts. Literally telling people they can only have so much can actually make them buy more. And here's a pro tip, and this is, again, from our good friends at World Data that analyzed the 50 million emails. What they found is about 22%, close to a quarter of people who click on an offer email are going to click on it after the expiration date. Okay, I guess people are busy, they're not really paying attention. 22% of the people that get some kind of an email with an offer in it are clicking on it after the offer expires. So you can do one of 2 things. You can say, sorry, offer expired, or you can do something to keep them in the fold. And if you do something to keep them in the fold, their lifetime value, on average, is 185 B2C to 225 B2B % higher than your regular customers. So maybe somebody misses the buy one, get one free offer. They go to apply, they can't get it, but you say, I'm sorry, that's already expired, but here's a code that will save you 25% on your purchase, right? People are so appreciative that they didn't completely get shut out. They think, gosh, that's awfully nice of you. I mean, it was my bad. You told me what the deadline was, and I missed it. But people are so appreciative, they spend money with you. So interesting little pro tip there. And all right, we're up to the final of our 15 counterintuitive tactics. And this is don't offer an incentive for purchase. And you may say to me, but Nancy, we know that incentives work, right? Buy one, get one free, free gift with purchase, sales. Like, we know that this motivates people. Why are you telling me that I shouldn't be incentivizing purchases? Well, I'm telling you this because there might be a better way. Researchers at Chinese University in Hong Kong have found that 68%, researchers at Chinese University in Hong Kong have found that people are 68% more likely to complete a task with an uncertain reward. Okay, people are 68% more likely to complete a task with an uncertain reward. What's an uncertain reward? You either don't know if you're going to get a reward, or you don't know what the reward is going to be. It's almost like finding out if you won or finding out what you won is in and of itself a reward. Like, it's very motivating to find out, did I get something? Can I get something? Will I be a winner? It can be very, very powerful. So let's look at a few ways to use it. This is Sephora, and they asked young ladies to upload photos of themselves wearing Sephora makeup for a chance to have your look featured here, for a chance. So it wasn't a guarantee, but it was a great opportunity for Sephora because the young women buy and apply the makeup. They're not going to return it, so the sale has been made. And because the research says that people are 68% more motivated to find out, even more young ladies were probably participating. Or here we have something from Sharper Image. And they say, hey, look, you can save anywhere between 5 and 50%. All you have to do is give me your email. And so you're like, all right, that's not too bad, right? Let me see what I can get. Maybe I'll get the 50%, you know? A lot more effective than just asking somebody for their email or saying, hey, we'll give you a 5% discount if you give the email. Or here we have something from Sears, and they've got one of those spin-to-win wheels, right? Maybe you'll save 25%, or maybe you'll save $15 or $25 or $35. You don't know unless you give it a give it a spin, rather. And your finger is like itchy. You just have to spin it, right? You just have to find out, what am I going to get? And then once you win, well, then you're in that, what behavioral scientists call a hot state decision-making spot where you're all excited about the fact that you just won the 35. You're much more likely to spend it. And also, it's yours, and you don't want to lose it. Because, again, loss aversion. So remember, instead of a discount, test giving a chance to win one. Okay, you can get more people motivated, and you can work the numbers so that they're in your favor. You can maybe spend less. And here's a pro tip. If any of you are running those customer loyalty programs, whether it's online or offline, we're all familiar with them, right? You get that series of boxes. Maybe there's 10 blank boxes, and you say, hey, look, get a check mark every time you make a purchase, and if you get all 10 boxes checked, you'll get the 11th for free. So you can give somebody, a form with 10 blank boxes, or you can give them a form with 12 boxes, but the first 2 are pre-checked. So in both cases, people still have to make 10 purchases. It's either 10 blank boxes or it's 12 boxes with the first 2 pre-checked. Researchers from Wharton and University of Southern California have found that people are 79% more likely to get all the boxes checked if the first 2 are pre-checked. They feel like, oh, it's been started, I want to finish. I'm partway there. I'm going to finish this off. And again, 10 blank boxes or 12 boxes with the first 2 pre-checked. Same amount of effort, but people are more likely to do it with the first 2 pre-checked. So we have covered 15 counterintuitive tactics that can increase the engagement and response to your marketing messages. Again, may not always make sense, but they can make money. If you want to find out more, I highly recommend my book, Using Behavioral Science and Marketing. I can get away with saying that because it's actually here at the South by Bookstore, room 10C in the conference center. But the book is available. People seem to like it. It's 288 pages, 17 chapters, and over 25 proven, easy-to-use tactics that increase in engagement and response. And I'll actually be there signing copies at 5:30 today, if anyone is interested. And I have 2 more things to say. I have a request, and I have a free gift for you. The request is, if you got anything that you liked out of today's session, if you found something that you think you might use, please rank me highly on the South by app, okay? Give me a good speaker rating, if you would, if you found something that is useful. If, on the other hand, you didn't think you found anything useful, there's really no need to bother South by. Just come to me directly. Let me know.